Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another daily devotion. I'm Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church, and we do these devotions Monday through Friday of every week. And if you're just joining us, we welcome you. And if you enjoy this, please like and subscribe and share. We'd love to have you here. We'd love to have more folks here. With that, we are working our way through the Gospel of Matthew. We are in the 26th chapter. We just got there yesterday. And we learned about the plot to kill Jesus. That followed up after 24 and 25, chapter 24 and 25, which is the Mount Olivet Discourse. And we talked at length about those, so you can go back and look at previous devotions. Yesterday, after all of that was said and done, the chief priests and the elders and scribes decided, well, we met in the courtyard of the high priest, and we got to kill this guy, Jesus, is what they decided. Got to get rid of him. He's too much of a pain. And I do apologize if I look a little disheveled and sweaty today. I hadn't planned on it, but I got a phone call. Some folks moving into town needed some help unloading a trailer and unloading a washer and dryer. So I called Clyde and Cordell, and we ran up and helped unload a trailer. The things that you end up doing as a pastor. It's not on the job description necessarily. But at any rate, good deed is done. Anyway, let's take a look at chapter 26 here in Matthew's Gospel. Today we're going to look at verses 6 to 13. I thought about going all the way to 16, but I'm going to leave that for tomorrow. Tomorrow will probably be a shorter devotion. So let's take a look at this and talk about it as a contrast to all four of the Gospels. This is a story that we can have to consider all four of the Gospels. All right, Matthew 26, verses 6 to 13. Now, while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. When the disciples saw it, they were angry and said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring this ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." And remember, that's in remembrance of her and her devotion, her love for Christ, not about this. It's not in remembrance of Jesus. That's an interesting thing to note. Jesus is saying you're going to remember her and how devoted, how attentive she was to Jesus. Now, this is without a doubt in Mark, Matthew, and John that you have this story. And I think it's the same story in those three Gospels. And all three have to do with the preparation for Jesus' burial. All have to do with saying that you always have the poor, but you won't always have me. So this lavishness about lavishing this ointment on Jesus in preparation for his death is a common theme in those three stories, in those three Gospels. Not Mark, again, John, rather, is not a synoptic. Mark and Matthew are synoptics. Luke is as well. Now we have an anointing story in Luke, but it's in, I believe, the seventh chapter, chapter 7, I believe, of Luke's Gospel. Too early in the story. It's not an anointing story. I think it's a different event. It's too early in the Gospel. These are all, although they have some variations here, in Matthew, we learn that it is 2 days before the Passover. In John's Gospel, this dinner takes place 6 days before the Passover. So we have a difference in the date. So there's a difference there. We have a difference. Mark and Matthew, takes place in the house of Simon the leper. In John, it takes place in the home of Lazarus. And you have Mary as the one that is anointing Jesus. We don't have a name in either Mark or Matthew of who it is. But the story in Mark tells us that it's 300 denarii. Just tells us here in Matthew that it's expensive. It doesn't tell us how much. But it's 300 denarii. That's 300 days, a good 10 months of labor. And John's Gospel tells, in John chapter 12, verses 1 to 8, we have the same story. And there it also tells us it's 300 denarii. So we have the same dollar value. Here in Matthew and Mark, the woman is anointing Jesus' head. In John, it's Mary's anointing his feet, so that's different. But in both of them, you have complaints by Judas Iscariot. Indirectly here, all the disciples complain in Matthew's story. It's Judas that later gets moved to the extreme. Talk about that tomorrow. But in John's story, Judas is the one that takes the exception. And I believe in Mark also. I didn't read it. It just says there were some of them who said to one another. So there's more than one disciple that's upset in John, or rather in Mark's gospel about this. In Matthew, it says that all of them seem to be upset about it, thinking that this is wasteful. And Jesus is saying this extravagance is, it is a way to show your devotion to me, to show your great love for me. So this story is definitely a story about the woman is preparing Jesus for his death. Doing a good deed for him, preparing a body for burial is a good deed. So she's doing a good deed for him. She's just showing him. She's recognizing what's going on. Even though the disciples seem to be in denial about Jesus, what he's really doing and what's really is going to happen, based on what happens in the garden as we come to it. Hopefully, I'll remember this and come back and reflect back on this then. But he just yesterday predicted that he was going to be handed over to be crucified, but they don't seem to still get it. They don't seem to get it at all. But she does, and she is there preparing him for his burial. And that's what we get from this. We walk away from this understanding that we have to be so devoted to Jesus. We have to lavish our love on him. And again, as I've said before, how do you show your love for God? You love his children. You love his creation. Okay? So I think that's what I've got for you. We're about the right time that I like to be at, somewhere around 7 minutes. So we're doing perfect. I thought about talking about Judas today, but I think we would have run over if we had done that. All right, with that, I'm going to let you go for the day. Please, please, please have a blessed day, and please, please, please be a blessing to someone today. Tell them about Jesus. That would be a wonderful blessing. All right, bye-bye, and God bless you all.